Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another episode of DGS. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are may be watching this right now. We have returned to more DGS, and, well, we found a snake. Sherlock is claiming this is the murder right now, but, well, let's just continue and talk about this. Holmes-san? May I say just one thing? Yes, by all means, go ahead. That snake is... How can I put this? I'm not sure speckled is the right word. No matter how you look at it, I'm pretty sure it's striped. Eh? That's true. In this case... Whoops, hold on a second. I believe one would refer to it as a striped rope. Those are some fine sets of eyes you have on you. However... What is that? We're part of the killer's cunning trap. Eh? A trap, you say? What kind of trap? Now then, I believe it's about time for me to state my conclusion. Is that alright with you, Miss Nigomina? Japanese man died. I feel sorry, but that is all. Iko has no connection with murder. I have two conclusions to offer at this time. The first one is that last night your friend slipped into the victim's room. And my other conclusion is the one responsible for the victim's death was that friend. Nikomina-san, she's gone white as sheet again. I guess that means his two conclusions were right on the money again. This girl's companion was the one who killed Asogi-sama? I guess he can't speak with that snake wrapped around his head like that. I would advise you hold still, sir. I'm certain that things would end well for you if you were to be bitten by our long friend here. Now then, shall we get started, everyone? On Sherlock Holmes, Logic and Reasoning Experimental Theater. Yes, please! I love this mechanic so much. Game is afoot. The intruder's identity. Miss Nikomina, I believe you stated the following. Nico has no connection with murder. However, you can't lie to yourself. Yes, it's only natural that that little heart of yours would ache when you remember the murder. That pain is exactly what proves your connection with the victim's death. So, who was the one who entered the scene of the crime through the vent that night? It was the friend you smuggled on board the ship, wasn't it? I thought so, just as I expected. Your line of vision moved again. Your friend is, of course, that snake. However, in that case, we're left with one problem. That snake! The thing that the victim saw on the night of his murder was a speckled rope, and yet... Unfortunately, no matter how you look at him, there's no way to accurately describe him as a speckled rope. In that case, what was it that the victim saw that night? Don't look! This has nothing to do with murder. Indeed, the answer to that is that item you're so desperately trying to hide right now. Which is, without a doubt, that cast-off snakeskin. Yes, after the murder, your friend... bolted. Is that right? What are you talking about? Last night, a snake with a speckle-patterned skin slipped into the cabin next door via the vent. Using the bell pull, that snake slithered slowly down into the room. And in the half-light, it looked like a speckled rope. I hope you guys are ready to see a lot of dead Asogi pictures. In other words, your friend who slipped into the crime scene last night actually is capable of changing the pattern on the skin when he molts. Quite the rare snake you've got there. I believe there may be an unusual snake of that nature lurking deep in wild India. Sherlock, are you... Okay, your friend the speckled snake. Second topic, the events leading to death. Now then, next, let us get to the heart of that death. Oh, why and how did the victim lose his life? According to the information I was given, the body displayed no external injuries. Which indicates that the victim's cause of death was a fearsome poison. And if that's the case, it's possible that some after effect of that death can be found somewhere on the scene of the crime. At the scene of the crime. It's not true. Yes, and if we search the body for traces, it should establish that as the cause of death. Somewhere on the victim's body should be some poisoned fang entry wounds too small to be spotted easily with the naked eye. The mark left by your friend, that terrifying poisonous snake. What are you talking about? Ms. Nigomina, there's no point in playing dumb. After the murder, you tried to hide everything, didn't you? Indeed, and your line of sight just confirmed the hiding place. You hid evidence of the victim's death in your trunk. The first time we entered this cabin, that trunk moved. The murder weapon, your little snaky, was thrashing about inside, wasn't he? Well... By the by, before he was murdered, the victim heard a sound like that of a low whistle. By the way, excuse me. That was you blowing the whistle as a signal, charming the snake. Charm? You released the snake through the vent, and after an allotted amount of time, you called it back to you with a whistle. At that point, you didn't know whether it had bitten anyone, so you went to check on the situation next door. The victim appeared to still be alive, so you released the snake one more time. You must have trained the snake to behave that way. No. It slithered down from the vent via the bell pull, and with a single bite with its poisoned fangs. The deadly poison pumped through the victim's body, extinguishing his life forever. And that is the identity of the speckled rope which took the victim's life. I sincerely hope that I'm wrong about all of this. Well, about that, Sherlock. Bitten by a snake and poisoned is the conclusion. You are quite possibly going the wrong direction with this. Although some of those points might be pretty close to the truth. Basically. We need to reroute your reasoning. Oh, and he says this has been Sherlock Holmes' famous deduction. Before that. Miss Nigomina trained the snake to become a murder weapon. There's a saucer sitting right over there. She likely trained it by giving it milk as a treat. I don't think snakes drink milk, but okay. Amazing. To think that it would all be solved right here and now. What a wonderful, famous deduction. So this is the famous detective Sherlock Holmes. Oh, please. It was elementary, although it did stave off boredom for a while. May I say something, Holmes-sama? Yes, of course. Say anything you like. In regards to your reasoning, there was just one point that I wasn't quite sure about. Are you sure it's 1 point or many points? Ah, questions are always welcome. I'll give them a loud, bold answer. Alright then, my first question. Snakes are born with eggs and are classified among a group of creatures known as reptiles. Oh, aren't you knowledgeable? Reptiles don't consume milk. Eh? It's only mammals who would gladly drink milk. It seems unlikely that one could train a snake using milk. Ah, in that case, she must have provided a different treat when training it. Milk was simply an example. It's not a significant issue. Next is one more point. Snakes don't possess ears. Eh? So, it seems unlikely that she would have been able to signal it with a whistle. But, I mean, come on. Haven't you heard stories of snakes in in Arabia being trained to dance to flutes? They played the flutes to match the snake's movements. Apparently, it only gives the impression that the flutes are controlling them. Is that so? Lacking in arms, legs, and even ears. What simple creatures! There's no need to take your anger out on snakes. May I move on to my next point? You're not done yet? Snakes utilize the scales on their stomachs to propel themselves forward. And apparently a snake wouldn't be capable of wrapping itself around a flat cord like the bell pull and move down it. Why can't they? There's no use getting angry with me. In any case, even if one were to send a snake off through the vent, it wouldn't be capable of returning on its own. In other words, I believe it would be rather difficult for that snake to have committed the crime. No, Holmes is so, upset. And so, I think it's time to give that another try, Naruhodō-sama. Give another try? You don't mean... Yes, let's gently change the deduction we just heard into one worthy of being called a famous deduction. I have a feeling that's what she's getting at. Alright, let's do it. I was waiting for you to say that, Mr. Naruhodō. Right. Show me your hands again. My hands? You did it again. Oh, the shackles! They're gone! When did that... There's no need to worry. I'll be sure to snap them firmly back in place afterwards. Can't we just leave them now? Now then, everyone, shall we begin? Sherlock Holmes, Logic and Reasoning, Experimental Theater. Alright, back to the first topic again. Pulling out my stylus because I'm gonna need it. First topic, the intruder's identity. Miss Nikomina, I believe you stated the following. Nico has no connection with murder. However, you can't lie to yourself. Yes, it's only natural that that little heart of yours would ache when you remember the murder. Nikomina-san, she certainly does look sad. Yes, you're right. It looks as though she feels the pain of Kazuma-sama's death in her heart. But it doesn't look like Holmes-san's words quite hit home, which must mean some other meaning behind that expression. In that case, let's try looking Nikomina-sama over carefully. Well, let's look at her hand. I have some scratch marks here. Look at that! It looks painful. It looks like she was scratched by some small animal, and it seems pretty fresh. But I haven't seen such a small animal anywhere. Well, doesn't matter for the time being, we're gonna present those. Yes, when you think back to the murder, it's only natural that those scratch marks would hurt. Exactly, and by the look of them, those scratches are still fresh. Nikamina-san, could it be that those scratches... Did you get them last night, perhaps? Ah! Well, it's also sad about next door person's death. When I'm sad, these scratches start to hurt. Make a note of the music in the background. Did you notice that the music keeps elevating itself as we keep making deductions? That pain is exactly what proves your connection with the victim. Victim's death. So, who was the one who entered the scene of the crimes with the event that night? It was the friend you smuggled on board this ship, wasn't it? I thought so. Just as I expected. Your line of vision moved again. Your friend is, of course, that snake. About those scratches inflicted on Nikamina-san's hand. They were made by her friend, right? But snakes don't have nails, right? Correct. They don't even possess hands where nails could grow. So then, what could this friend of hers be? The thing that Nikamina-sama just unconsciously looked at. That's where we should be able to find the answer. Let's examine the snake. Still, the longer I look at it, it's quite a stunning striped specimen of a snake, isn't it? Yes, it truly is. Well, look at it though. It wrapped itself around the crew member's head as if trying to crush it. It's a fearsome and yet endearing sight. Anyway, it's probably in our best interest not to come any closer. Okay, Stroganoff. The target at the end of Nikamina-san's line of vision. I think it's Stroganoff-san. He may very well be a friend of hers, but I'm certain it would be impossible for him to use that vent to go anywhere. But think about me. I was able to get here by stuffing myself in that closet, right? I can't help thinking, what's your point? We should just agree that there's something vaguely heartwarming about this and move on. Yeah! Okay. Oh, hey, there's a picture. Somehow, I get the sense that Nikamina-san glanced at this teapot just for a second. Could this teapot be her friend? Well, to each their own, I suppose. I don't think there's any point in judging her. In any case, I suppose I'll just keep my judgments to myself. It's like somehow we decided she was friends with that teapot. No, guys, that's not it. Let's look at the picture. It's a kitty! This is a photo. It's probably something Nikamina-san brought with her. Aw, Nikamina-san is such a lovely girl, isn't she? I can't argue with that, but personally, it's this little black creature that catches my eye. We should take a close look at this photo. Let's do it! Let's present the kitty cat! Hi! This friend of yours. Naturally, it's this kitten. Indeed! If we consider the scratch marks inflicted by your hand, on your hand, it's obvious. A black kitten. I'm not sure where it is now, but... You brought it with you when fleeing your country, isn't that right? Blackie is Nico's friend. Blackie? That's it? That's the best you can think of? I couldn't leave him behind. Is the kitten named Blackie? However, if that's the case, then that leaves us with a bit of a problem. The thing the witness saw on the night of his death was a speckled rope. And yet... Unfortunately, I simply don't see any way that someone could take him for a speckled rope. So then, what was it the victim saw last night? Don't look! This has nothing to do with murder. Indeed, the answer to that is that item you're so desperately trying to hide right now. which is, without a doubt, that cast-off snakeskin.
Nikomina-sama.
She subconsciously took out what was in her pocket and hid it behind her back. I feel like she could have made it through this without being found out if she had just left it in her pocket.
This must be one of Home-sama's special bluffs.
Isn't his specialty supposed to be reasoning?
Anyway, I'm not sure we can assume that that's a cast-off snakeskin.
What in the world is that thing that Nikomina-san is trying to hide? Let's look at it. If it'll let me. Holy shit, this is kind of hard to do. Let's examine the snakeskin, quote-unquote. Well, it is a speckle and a rope shape, but what is this thing? It's fluffy and soft, made of a long piece of cloth, and there's a small handle attached to the end.
This very well may be a Western foxtail.
Foxtail?
A toy that you swish around to play with a cat. Kittens especially like this sort of toy. If you move this somewhere where they can see it, they'll come running no matter where they were.
That sounds incredibly adorable. It does! Alright, now we've updated so it's a foxtail. Let's present the foxtail. That's, of course, it can only be that foxtail. Indeed. In other words, that was the true identity of the speckled rope. You were dangling this toy from the vent, weren't you? Perhaps you even jiggled it a little. It's only natural that it would have caught the victim's eye. But what was she trying to accomplish by doing that? Isn't it obvious? Her kitten had run away to the next door cabin through the vent. She was trying to lure it back with that speckled foxtail. Means that the identity of your friend who snuck into the scene of the crime last night was a mischievous kitten, Blackie. Ah! What a troublesome kitty. If I happen to spot him, I'll pounce and capture him for you at once. But I'll need to borrow this picture of Blackie for a little while. Picture of Nikomina and her friend, Blackie the kitten. Her stage costume tiara are also pictured here. Also, let me know if you guys want me to stop reading the descriptions, because I've already translated the descriptions for the most part, so...
Last night, I was giving him dinner. That's when... He scratched Nico's hand. Suddenly, up the bell pull. In blink of eye, vanished into vent. Blackie is naughty kitty.
This might go over, but again, it's more or less the case if I want to finish the joint reasoning and not leave it in the middle of it. Also, the answer was your friend the kitten. The events leading to death. Oh, there's music! Now then, next, let us get to the heart of that death. Why and how did the victim lose his life? According to the information I was given, the body displayed no external injuries. Which indicates that the victim's cause of death was a fearsome poison.
It's just as Home-sama said. The part about Kazuma-sama having no external injuries was true.
Yes, but it seems that we have some information that Home-san doesn't have. Asogi didn't die from poison.
So it would seem. Let's share that information with Home-sama.
Corpse inspection report. Yes, in other words, the victim cause of death is indicated in this corpse inspection report. Indeed. I also thought perhaps we might find it here.
His spine.
The only one here who could survive having his spine broken is probably that crewman there. I'm pretty sure even Stroganoff-san is human. In any case, the victim's spine was broken. If that's the case, then... It's possible that some after effect of that death can be found somewhere at the scene of the crime.
Is not true.
Yes, and if we search the body for traces, it should establish that as the cause of death. Sogi died of a broken spine. I guess that means he was hit with something.
That's possible. However, as of right now, we have yet to find anything that we can assume to be the murder weapon.
Plus, there's no way Sogi was whacked by that intrusive kitten.
It's possible that he fell in an unnatural pose and struck something in a bad way. It's not unthinkable that something could break their neck accidentally.
Yeah, you're right. Fell in an unnatural pose, huh?
But when it comes to Kazuma-sama, it's hard to imagine him doing something so clumsy.
Anyway, let's see if we can make a substitution here. Where could the after effect of Asogi's death have been left? I don't know, let's look at the floor mark. Hi! Yes, if we investigate that mark on the floor, we should be able to establish the cause of death. Such a trace really was left behind. On the floor of the crime scene was a shoe polish scuff.
Shoe polish?
I checked it out with these special goggles I made and always carry around for my amusement. Beeswax, tallow, and dye. All the ingredients which match the composition of a shoe polish perfectly. And the color of that shoe polish was a perfect match with Asogi's high-lace leather boots. Looking at this mark, we can get an idea of what took place. It's possible that he tripped on something there and fell. And even more unfortunately, he struck his neck hard on something and fell to the floor in that manner. The victim sustained critical damage to his cervical vertebrae, and at that moment, breathed his last.
No! Nico doesn't know. Nico knows nothing.
Is that true, I wonder? When the victim passed away, a certain piece of evidence was left behind at the crime scene. Indeed, and that critical bit of evidence, you tried desperately to hide it, didn't you? Yes, and on top of that, your gaze has just directed me to the place where you hid it. The evidence of what killed the victim. You hid it in your trunk.
But how could Kazuma-sama really have died from slipping and falling? That can't be true. I refuse to believe it.
But the mark left behind on the floor certainly seems to indicate just that.
Oh.
And according to Holmes-san's reasoning, Nikomino-san tried to hide the proof of that. Somewhere in this cabin, and Nikomino-san just glanced at it.
I wonder, just where did she hide it?
Let's take a good hard look. We should be able to find the answer. Well, trash bin behind there. That's the only other thing we can look at.
This is this cabin's wastebasket.
Nikomino-san came aboard this ship last night, so I wouldn't think she'd be able to have made that much garbage yet. Hello! Huh? What's this?
It's a glass shard.
Why is it that I get the feeling I've seen this somewhere before?
It seems unlikely that's only your imagination.
Well, let's present the garbage bin. You hid the evidence of the thing that killed the victim in the wastebasket. That beautiful glass shard. I feel as though I've seen it before. Yes, if we compare it to the shard found lying on the floor of Asogi's cabin, they should fit together perfectly, just like this. Now then, Miss Nikomina, let us hear your explanation. Why is the glass shard that fell and broke at the crime scene in the wastebasket in this cabin? Tell us your reason. Naturally, you're familiar with this glass bell.
Well,
that Nico knows nothing that you're so fond of throwing out won't work this time. Because you see, there's a decisive piece of evidence. Oh, whoop, okay, that was one line. There was a decisive piece of evidence that ties you to it. Eh? Isn't that right, Mr. Naruhodō? Yes. The thing that connects Nikomina-san to this glass bell is... I love how Sherlock isn't the one who answers it. Let's present the photo. It's shown clearly in this photo, hanging from Blackie-kun's black neck. Excuse me. None other than this exact glass bell. You can't escape now, Miss Nikomina. The victim slipped on the floor of his cabin, and in a most unfortunate manner, lost his life. And that fateful fall has something to do with your friend Blackie-kun. I just couldn't bring myself. Tell. So sorry. Asogi tripped on a cat and that's how he died. What the fuck? Elementary. That is a shitty death. Maybe you can tell us now, Nikomina-san. What exactly happened last night? Well, we're gonna find out how it happened in the next video, because now we are definitely over time. So I'll see you guys then.